Today I'm going to go over how to do an avatar effect on a person's face. With this example, I use Kim Kardashian. I have the avatar poster up. As you can see, it's kind of a bluish tone, but you keep the texture underneath, some brighter dots, and then I think the eyebrows are a little bit more pronounced. Their eyes are larger, their nose are more wide. And we have something, just kind of a collage here that shows you male and female Navi, or whatever they're called. So here's kind of how to do this fun technique. I know there's a couple tutorials on YouTube about doing this, but some of them are kind of speed painting. They don't really show you how to do this. A couple of them show you some of the dialog boxes, but don't really explain it. So go ahead and open up an image. You want to, maybe an image of yourself, if you want to turn yourself into avatar character, or someone else, whatever. So once you have that open, this one's 1600 pixels by 1200, and what we'll first do is, I like working on a duplicated layer, so just press Ctrl J or Command J on the Mac, and we really need to make her eyes a little bit larger, her nose kind of more flat and wide, and I think that'll be okay for the most part. I mean, we could adjust the chin, but I think the chin's okay. Then we're going to add some hues and some kind of animal print, and see what we can come up with. So first thing we want to do is we need to select those eyes. So go ahead and choose the elliptical marquee tool. So click and hold on the rectangular marquee tool, pull the elliptical out, and I'm just going to go around her eye like this, like so. Alright, and what we want to do is go to Select and then Modify Feather, and I'm going to do about a 10 pixel feather. That kind of softens the edge. Alright, then press Ctrl J or Command J on the Mac, and what you'll see is we've copied that eye onto a new layer that has a soft, subtle edge to it. Alright, we'll repeat the process for the other side. Alright, remember, go to Select, Modify Feather, 10 pixels, Ctrl J. And now what we'll want to do, select the Move tool. And we can make it larger right here by transforming, pulling the side. If you want to experiment with some of the other settings, you go to Edit, Transform, and choose, Scale is the default, but Skew, Distort, Perspective, Warp. For this one, I'm just going to click and drag the edge. Just make it a little bit larger, as you can see here. And it's better to have a high-res file, because then you won't lose a lot of the resolution here. You don't want to pixelate. And notice on the edge there, we don't want it to go off the edge either. The one on the right-hand side, obviously a little bit farther away. On this, she's tilted to the left, so this eye is going to be a little bit smaller because it's farther away from the camera. But we don't want it to be too small. We also want it to be about the same height. Alright. Yeah, I think that's probably pretty good. If you want to even adjust it even a little bit more, make sure you're on the correct layer. So I'm on her right hand side eye here. You could also go to Filter, Liquify, and do the bloat tool just a little bit if you wanted to. And then hit OK, and you can see it just bloats it out a little bit. So I'll do that to the other one too. I'm just clicking it really quick here, right in the pupil there. Okay. Now we need to do the nose. So go ahead and click on that original layer there, layer 1, because otherwise, if you have one of these eye layers selected, we're not going to be able to select the nose. So make sure this layer selected, and I'm going to do the lasso tool, and I'm just going to select around this nose here. It's a little bit tricky because she's looking to the side, but I think it'll be fine here. Go ahead and go to Select, Modify, Feather, 10 pixels is fine. And instead of just transforming it, we actually need to distort it a little bit. So go ahead and go to Edit. If you go to Transform, you can try Perspective. I mean, if you click and drag that top, it kind of brings that top out a little bit compared to the bottom. You can also go to Edit, Transform, Distort, and experiment with that. I'm actually going to go to Edit, Transform, and then Warp, and it gives us this little kind of grid here that we can stretch out that nose, because how it is the nose is a little bit more flat than human noses, so we need to widen it out just a little bit, like so. Alright, I think that's probably wide enough. Click Apply. Alright, what we'll do is add a little bit of coloring next. What we need to do is select all of our skin. First though, I actually want to just merge these top layers so that the eyes are on the same layer as this bottom layer. So if you just click and hold Shift, got these top 3 layers selected, then you can go to Layer, Merge Layers, or Control or Command E. Then we just have this layer here. They're all on the same. Alright, so the nose and the eyes are all on the same layer. So what you want to do, you can probably use a polygonal lasso tool. I'm just going to go around the skin here. You can press Command or Control plus to zoom in and zoom out, but let's do kind of a quick selection here for our purposes. I'll probably fast forward this in the tutorial though. Okay, so we have a selection of Kim's face here. What we want to do is not select the eyes. So go ahead and hold on to Alt on the PC or Option on the Mac, and we're just going to select around the eyes right here. And that will subtract from our selection like so. Basically just the skin up here to be selected. What we can do is the skin right here selected, a couple of different ways you can adjust the hue. We could just paint on a new layer and then adjust the blending mode, but I think first we're actually going to do a hue adjustment. Go ahead and go to Image Adjustments, Hue Saturation. And then click Colorize, and we'll just pull this over to blue, make it a little bit more saturated, make it a little bit darker though, but keeping that hue underneath. Alright, and go ahead and click OK. And next we want to add a little bit of variation in there, so choose a soft edge brush here. And I'm going to choose some kind of blue, maybe a darker blue. And I'm going to click New Layer on the bottom of the Layers palette. And I'm going to make a large brush here and just click once, just a little bit of variation. And then you can actually change it to, for example, multiply. That just adds a little bit of different hues. You can actually add a bit more shadows or different blue hues throughout if you want. But for the purposes of the tutorial, I'm just stop there. But if you can see in this top layer, it's just a couple quick large soft edge brush clicks. Alright. So if we look at that over the other one, we could actually make it a little bit lighter if we wanted. You can change the opacity of one of the top layers. So it's not as bright. You can also change the opacity of this one so it shows through to the bottom, but I'm going to leave it like that. So what we need to do, if you look at the other examples, the eyes are one of the most compelling parts of the look. All right, it's kind of dark black center, and then a reflective kind of green hue there. So what we can do is go ahead and just deselect, and we're actually going to go in here and make the pupils actually a little bit larger. So I'm going to click the eye icon next to the top two layers, so just so we can see the original one, and I'm going to zoom in, press Control plus or Command plus, and I'm going to just select the pupil here, and I'm just going to press Control J so it's on its own layer, drag it above this other layer, the other layers up here, and you can see it. It's right there. And I'm going to make it a little bit larger because theirs really stick out. It's not that their eyes are larger, they are, but also their pupils inside their eyes are a bit larger as well. So I'm just going to hit Enter, and you can make a selection above it here and also below, so the pupil doesn't come out of the eyeball there. And you can do a mask, or you can just delete. Alright. And I'll repeat that process for the one over here. Press Control J, move it above. And make it a little bit larger. This is why it's better to have a high-res photo as well, with a lot of pixels per inch, because we can afford to stretch out some of the pixels without it pixelating right away. And you can adjust the opacity if you can't see through that. If you need to, you can adjust the opacity to see through to the layer below it while you're selecting that. Alright, I'm going to actually bring these on to, I'm going to hit the icon next to those new pupils first. And if you look at, here we just have kind of more of a pale, maybe white background, black center, and then the green and yellowish kind of hues around the edges. Alright, so I'll leave some of that white there. I'm actually going to take a soft edge brush, hit the left bracket on the keyboard to make it smaller for the shortcut, kind of make this edge a little bit more subtle, darken that edges so we don't have that hard edge. You could do that in the original selection as well by feathering it, but I think this is fun. And you notice the selection up here isn't the best, but again, you can feather it so that it goes over the edge as well, but I'm going to fix that in a second. So we have the large pupils, white background, and we just need to add some hue to the inside. So what you can do, if the one up here, this is the one we have selected, you can actually just paint some black in the center here, like so. And then we need to, and I could go take one of the hues from the original, you know, like greenish. So that's, I just used the eyedropper tool, grabbed a hue, then we have the 6-digit web color code, or the RGB or CMYK levels. But it's already in the foreground color picker there. So what we can do, choose the soft edge brush again, look back at the original, and we have two options really. I mean, I could go ahead and just adjust this layer. So if I went to Image, Adjustments, Hue Saturation, Colorize, and I can make it a little bit green, make the saturation a bit higher up, and then the lightness, don't want to light it too much, all the way to white or all the way to black. Just want to kind of right in the middle here. So 117, 67, -4. Okay. So we have the green underlay there, but we also need a little bit more detail as far as some yellow coming in. So what we can do, let's go ahead and merge all these layers like so. Just select them all, layer, merge layers, and I'm going to click create new layer in the bottom layers palette, and let's see what kind of yellow they have here. I'm going to pull this one out, kind of yellowish brown. There we go. Let's see, a little bit lighter. Maybe a little bit lighter here. I'm going to do a couple effects to it. So do a soft edge brush, hit the left bracket to make it a little bit larger. We're going to add a little bit of detail coming out here. It kind of looks hokey right now. We're going to change the blending mode in a second, so no worries. Here, okay. Just adding some detail. You can press the left to make some smaller ones. Left bracket. And after you're done with that, you can also click on the smudge tool, click and hold on the blur, bring it down to smudge. You can smudge this back a little bit. Alright, we can change the layer blending mode. You can see the different options here. Some of them don't do that much, but lighten, color dodge is pretty good. So it depends on your settings on what might work best. You can kind of see the different effects of all those. So I'm actually going to do color dodge for this one, and I'm going to keep painting over here, and you can see the effect. You can make a couple. You want to vary the brush size here, so I'm going to press the right bracket, make it a little bit thicker. And if you mess up, I mean, you could mask out, but for this, I mean, you could probably just erase a little bit. So I'm going to grab the eraser, bring that a little bit down, make the eraser smaller, add some blank spaces in here. So you get the idea. And you could go back and grab a couple more hues as well to make it even more detailed. But you get the idea. You just want to smudge and add a little bit more detail, different hues. So you kind of get this radial pattern that goes out. Alright, with the layer blending mode, it makes it a little bit more subtle. I actually do need to repaint some black on there because I think some of the black got smudged out. I'm going to do a hard edge brush, a little larger here. And then we need a little bit of a reflection going on. So what you can do there, create another layer. I'm going to merge these two down here. Layer. Then merge layers. Alright, there's a new layer on top. I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to get white. And just a soft edge brush here. I'm just pressing the left and right bracket on the keyboard to adjust the size. And from there, I want to actually smudge it over here. If you think it's a little bit too powerful in some areas, or some areas can be made adjusted a little bit. And that kind of reflection. You do the same thing on the other side. And let's smudge this a little bit. And it kind of has even a little bit of patterns in it. Actually drag some of that down. This gets a little bit of variation in it. Okay. And the lips, I mean, they're a little bit darker, but they're not like purple or anything like that in these examples. They do have that pattern underneath, but I'm gonna leave that like so. I mean, you could adjust it a little bit if you wanted to make the lips a little bit different, but let me go ahead and do the pattern next. So this pattern here on the face, what you can do is go to layers and then new layer. I'm going to merge these two because I'm done with the eyes. Layer, merge layers. And there's a couple different ways you can do this. We could create, just a different hue and just do some kind of animal print. We could do a selection even. So I'll just show you one way. Let's go ahead and probably just do selection with the polygonal lasso tool. It doesn't have to be exactly like the other examples, but let's just say, yeah, if you double click, it'll complete that circle. So I want to create another one, so just hold shift. And I'm going to look at the original here just for kind of inspiration. Okay, some of those go around the edge. So I just want it a little bit more curved, so I have to click more often. I think that's better. So something like this. Alright, we have a selection and we're on a new layer, so we can actually fill this with some kind of color, but I'm actually going to and then we could do some kind of layer adjustment, but I'm actually going to paint in some pixels here. Alright, with a soft edge brush. First I'm going to actually go to select, modify, feather. I'll do like a 5 pixel feather. Alright, so I'm just going to paint in here a little bit, paint in the bottom, and then I'm going to change that to, you could try multiply, color burn, linear burn, see what all the different effects are, or you can adjust the opacity, or a combination of both. Overlay probably works well. I'm going to actually bring the opacity down just a little bit and the fill just slightly. Alright, so I have kind of a nice subtle pattern on her face now. If you want to add more, you can always do that. Next I'm actually going to add the lights, or the little white dots here. And it looks like they're symmetrical. I mean, the pattern on one side is pretty similar to the pattern on the other side. So what you can do to achieve that effect, just choose a brush, set the fill to white, small soft edge brush here, and I'm going to just, let's see, most of it's up near the nose and on the forehead, so I'm just going to create a couple. Actually, I'm going to merge these first. You don't have to do that, I just like to do that to keep it once I've done that effect. Alright, so create a new layer, and then I'm just going to create just a couple patterns here. Actually, I don't need that one, so I'm just going to do the top one by eye right here, because it's not going to be a perfect mirror, because you'd have to distort it because the way she's looking to the right. So, but on the top I could actually, if I click here and make a pattern, alright, I can use the rectangular marquee tool, click and drag around it, and go to copy, edit, paste, and then we can actually just flip it on the other side. So I have a mirror, even though she's looking to the side a little bit, so I might have to distort it somewhat. Then just hit enter. And what you can do, I'm going to merge these two, layers. And I'm going to actually duplicate this, so press Ctrl J, and I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, make a little bit of a blur for this one, maybe like 7 pixels. Alright, so it adds a little bit of more subtlety to it. You can also go to the eraser, and if you want some of them just to have the subtle look, you can erase that one, so then it gets rid of the more hard edge one, or you can get rid of the blurred one if you want some to be more distinct. Alright. You can also adjust the opacity of each one as well. If you think they're a little strong, you can bring it down like so. But you don't want to bring it down too much because they do kind of stick out somewhat. Alright. And again, you can adjust the, if you wanted to adjust the blue here, if you think the blue is too dark, you can also, of course, go to, layer adjustment mode, or you can go to layer, new adjustment layer, and you can adjust the brightness or contrast, the levels, the curves. For example, if I went to hue saturation of that entire layer, and then say bring the saturation up a little bit, or bring the lightness up. Alright, it does it to the entire layer though. And if you wanted to get rid of that layer adjustment, you could just delete it. Alright, so you'd probably want to crop out or delete all the background there if you wanted to adjust that too. Speaking of which, I do need to adjust the edge here just a little bit. So what I can do, I could paint in the edge, but I'm actually going to use the clone stamp tool. Alright, so hold down Alt or Option on the Mac, and then you can just clone stamp a little bit of this up there. And we're going to actually do the ear next. Just need to have a little bit more subtle edge here. Alright, probably want to sample a lot so it doesn't look kind of repetitive. Sample from a couple different areas. Alright, and as far as the ears definitely are different. If you can see here. So for this one, if our ear was showing, we can actually do a selection and then do an edit transform, and then do some of the different distorts, like a warp, for example. I think for this example, we could do that partly. It's just the bottom part that we want to adjust, really. So if you go to Edit, Transform, Warp, zoom in here, it kind of comes down a little bit more, like so. I'm not going to do too much. And she does have kind of almost like a gauge. So you could go to Filter, Liquify, or actually you can delete kind of an inner circle there. So I just clicked in here, deleted that. And I'm going to fill this. I could fill the background, probably just her hair, really. So I'm just gonna, so almost like it shows through to her hair. And if you want to make it larger, again, we can just go to Filter, Liquify, just slightly. Make that hole a little bit larger. Alright. And a couple other editing touches. You could go through and if you wanted to add a little bit more pattern and also the lips, you can, if you want a different hue to them, you can experiment with different hues and just create a new layer. And if I drew over her lips, like so, I'll probably do selection first, and you can adjust different layer blending modes. So like multiply, sometimes people use overlay. I use like soft light there, makes it a little bit lighter just so the lips stand out a little bit more. Right. And of course with this example you could also add a background. That's not really part of the tutorial, but I'll just, for simplicity's sake, add kind of a black background here. And you can also paint in the black brush here for that edge. Or you can feather the edge of the selection as well, of course. Alright. Last thing here is some of our scalp showing up there, so we'd actually need to use the clone stamp tool. Is the way our hair is parted, shown through just a little bit. Alright. So that's a couple different techniques to use when you're taking a celebrity photo or your friends or yourself or whatever. You just want to turn them into a character from Avatar. Thanks.